Hi, Karen Chase, here to talk a little bit about real estate, what we know and what we
don't know?
Well,
Nothing.
I guess if we don't know, we know nothing, right?
So what we know about real estate is that it's way harder than
As far as a career and a profession.
Yeah. And coming in for a buyer, it's a tough market. So it's tough. It's not like, oh, I want to buy a house and then it just happens. With the profession part of it, it's very hard to be a part-time real estate agent right now, just because it's so competitive, and if you're not constantly training and learning all the new marketing tactics and whatnot, it's tough. So I think that is probably the biggest misconception we hear, is that, oh, it's super easy. Oh, you create your own schedule. Oh,
that's my favorite one.
Yeah.
Oh, you create your own schedule. I'm like, totally.
When the buyer calls and wants to see a house in 5 minutes, you're like, well, yeah, I create my own schedule. Yeah, totally.
Yeah, I think that part is the hardest, because if you're really giving your clients the customer service that they want and deserve, you're working on their schedule and their timetable, which that's just how it is. But I think it is totally a misconception that you just kind of show how the phone rings, you show a house, and then you close escrow.
Right.
I read
a million things in between.
Yeah, and our job is to keep buyer from all of that stress, right? So our job is to screen them, from all of the craziness in the background. So hopefully it's as stress-free as possible. But I think that, and then I read a meme the other day that was like, oh, get your license. Oh, you'll make 6 figures. I mean, you probably won't, but you could. That's my other fave. Oh my God, $1 million listing is you're making crazy amounts of money, which is not necessarily the case. So I think there's a couple misconceptions in there.
I know that it is more customer service oriented than most people think, because in whoever you're dealing with, whether it's agents dealing with the client, buyer, seller, there's so many other agents and so much other competition, that if our customer service is not fantastic, they're just going to the next person, right? And when we're dealing with other agents, if we are not treating them with respect and making sure that we're doing what we're supposed to be doing, then it will end up backfiring, because even though there's so much competition, the majority of the business is being done by a
very tiny amount, or a small amount of agents.
Right, and so if we are not nice to this small group of agents, or we have clients who end up canceling because they didn't do their due diligence or whatever, then we end up burning bridges. That is not good.
And I think from a profession standpoint, and I think this is where we try to bring ourselves to the next level, there are so many licensed people, and we as a profession, I think, have not the greatest reputation, or that's the right word. Yeah, I mean,
car salesman.
Yeah, and we try really hard to completely separate ourselves from that feel and that the way of conducting business. That's not we're not interested in just making a deal go. We are our reputation and our professionalism, those are we hold those we hold tight to that. And I feel we were talking about how going from competitor to coworker as you're doing a deal with somebody who you just fought to get a listing from or with, and sometimes you're on the top and sometimes
you're not.
Saying but then you turn around with a buyer who's trying to buy that same listing, so you have to have grace and be humble as you're doing it. Otherwise, you're ruining the deal that's in the pipeline, right? So it's an interesting kind of
balance
game, but I feel as you're keeping your integrity and you're keeping those things, it makes it easier to hopefully make it so you're winning for whatever client it is you're trying to work for. Yeah, and keeping as hard as it is, trying to keep your ego out of it, and the competitive side of us is where I think that's the part that really gets us. Losing is not necessarily personal to the other agent, but personal for us. We're just it's hard for us to lose, and so I think that's mostly where I think we struggle.
So I think that's the majority of it, it's not as easy as it seems. There's a lot that goes into it, and it's super, super customer service oriented. And maybe not just customer service, but it's just people, like keeping relationships. I think that's the gist of it.